Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. It's been a while. I haven't been podficking for a while. Damn. Let's see. So today I will be podficking something. Hold on. I don't know. Let's see. Today I'm gonna be podficking The Perfect Birthday, chapters 14 and 15, because, might as well just put them in the same video. They're not that long. Yeah. So, The Perfect Birthday, if you don't know, it was actually the first fic that I wrote. It was the first fic I posted when I started posting on AO3, and it has been a year now. So I finally finished it last night on stream. If you were there, you know. But yeah, that's all I have to say. So I'm gonna read chapters 14 and 15, and there will be a sequel to this. I am writing it currently. So, okay, I'm gonna shut up and read now. Chapter 14, Surprise. July 15th, 2:20 p.m. at UA. Hitoshi Shinzo's POV. Hitoshi was excited for Izuku to see the party they set up. His insides were jumping up and down as they got closer and closer to the gates. "You look jittery," Izuku commented, poking Hitoshi's side as he scanned his ID to let them in. "What's up?" Nothing," Hitoshi said, nonchalantly as he tried to calm his nerves. "They've come this far. You can't ruin it now." Izuku eyed him skeptically, but didn't mention it again as they made their way onto the UA campus. Hitoshi stayed near the back of their group with Denki next to him. The latter elbowed him in the ribs. "Ow!" Hitoshi hissed, quietly so Izuku wouldn't hear him. "What the hell was that for?" The blonde just shook his head. "Don't make him suspicious when we only have a few minutes until the surprise," Denki whispered, sending Hitoshi a glare that the purple-haired boy was unaware he could muster. "I know. I'm just excited for him," Hitoshi admitted, looking away from the blonde who was practically beaming. Hitoshi rolled his eyes. "Keep your mouth shut, blondie." The blonde made a show of miming the action of zipping his lips, so Hitoshi knew that he wasn't going to tell a soul. Hitoshi let out a quiet snort as he knocked his shoulder against his best friend's, causing him to laugh. While Hitoshi was laughing, he missed the sad look that crossed over Izuku's face as he watched them. If he had seen, he would have immediately tried to tell the boy that Denki was nothing more to him than a friend. But he didn't see, so he didn't know that that was what he should have been saying. July 15th, 2:25 p.m. at UA. Katsuki Bakugo's POV. Katsuki didn't miss the way Izuku's face had dropped when he glanced behind him. It didn't take long for the boy to realize exactly why his best friend seemed so sad. He decided to do his duty as a best friend and comfort the boy, just not in the way most would expect. "Nerd," Katsuki whispered as he saddled up to Izuku's side, wrapping his arm around the shorter boy's shoulders. Izuku looked up at him with glassy eyes. "Yes, Kachan?" Izuku inquired, sniffling as he tried to sound as energetic as normal. Katsuki saw right through his facade and rolled his eyes. "You like eye bags," he said, getting straight to the point. He wasn't one to dance around the subject he wanted to talk about. Unless it was personal to him, then he really needed to fight to get his feelings out. "Of course I do," Izuku said, knowing that lying or deflecting would get him nowhere when talking to Katsuki. "He's just so, I don't know, Kachan. He's just so different." "Different how?" Katsuki asked, not quite understanding where Izuku was going with this train of thought. "I don't know," the boy groaned, leaning his head onto Katsuki's shoulder as he contemplated the feelings he was trying to articulate. "I don't think there's any other way to describe it," Izuku started, and Katsuki hummed in understanding. "You're in love with him," he declared, resting his own head atop of Izuku's. The shorter boy just nodded. "I'm in love with Hitoshi," the boy echoed, as if speaking it into the universe would finally make it real. What are you going to do about it? Katsuki asked, curiosity getting the better of him. Do I have to do something about it? Izuku asked, glancing up at Katsuki, who just huffed. If you want to bag him, yes, you have to do something, Katsuki answered, pushing Izuku's head off of his shoulder as he ruffled the boy's hair. Izuku pushed his hand away before crossing his arms over his chest and huffing. Fine, then maybe I'll talk to him later, he mumbled, but Katsuki heard him all the same. He swung his arm over the boy's shoulders again before saying, Attaboy. Izuku giggled as Katsuki chuckled. Neither of them noticed the glaring purple eyes boring into their skulls, too caught up in the bliss of the moment. July 15th, 2:28 a.m. at UA. Shoto Todoroki's POV. Your eyes are glowing, Shinzo, Shoto told the purple-haired boy, who was currently glaring at Bakugo and Izuku. Said boy blinked in confusion as he turned to look at Shoto. What? He asked, as he turned his head to face Shoto. The bi-colored boy shrugged before saying, Your eyes are glowing purple like they did earlier when you were facing the acid villain. Shinzo blinked. Again, I must ask. What? He reiterated, looking even more confused than earlier. Exactly as I said. Your eyes are glowing, Shinzo, Shoto said, trying to get the words through Shinzo's head. The boy shook his head, probably trying to shake off his confusion, which only made Shoto confused himself. That makes no sense. My quirk doesn't have anything to do with my eyes, the boy said, sounding like he was having an existential crisis. Maybe it's because Aizawa was your dad, Shoto offered, unraveling one of his conspiracy theories without being so blunt. Shinzo sputtered. Aizawa was not... Where did... Huh? What made you... What? Shinzo was bright red. Embarrassed, Shoto realized. You two look alike, have similar mannerisms, and you both lack the proper amount of sleep, Shoto said, defending his theory. Aizawa was not my dad, Shinzo said, before tacking on, at least not biologically. He did adopt me earlier this year. I see, Shoto said, raising a hand to his chin as he pondered. In that case, I have no idea, but what I do know is that your eyes only glow when you're looking at Midoriya. What? Shinzo asked, eyes wide and cheeks pink. Yeah, when you're being protective over him, Shoto said, oblivious to the blush creeping up his friend's face. Earlier, it was because that acid villain took him as a hostage, and now it's because Bakugo's really close to him and made him laugh. So, Shinzo started, taking a deep breath. You think my eyes only glow when I'm mad or jealous? Shoto contemplated it for a moment before nodding. I guess, if that's what you were feeling when your eyes were glowing, he said, shrugging. God, Shinzo breathed. Todoroki, I'm in love with Izuku. Shoto blinked. I could have told you that, the bi-colored boy said, rolling his eyes as Shinzo blanched. Are you just figuring this out? At that moment, they reached the doors to the teachers' dorms. Shoto and Shinzo would have to table that conversation for a later date. Maybe. July 15th, 2:31 p.m. at UA, Izuku Midoriya's POV. Izuku was very confused. Why were they at the teachers' dorms? He thought they were making their way to the 1A dorms, so they could join the rest of the class in celebrating Togata. Why are we here? Midoriya asked, voicing his confusion. He looked behind him so he could see the faces of his friends. He watched a smirk play on Hitoshi's lips as Kacchan and Nato each reached an arm behind him to open the doors. Izuku spun around when he noticed, before going completely still when he saw what was on the other side of the door. Happy birthday, Izuku! Everyone in the common area of the dorm yelled. In the room were all of his teachers, the entirety of the league, about half of 1A, and all of 1B. Oh, and Hatsume was there too. Said girl bounced up to him. Happy birthday, 10 million, she declared, a huge grin on her grease-laden face, as she pulled Izuku in for a hug. Izuku took measured breaths as he hugged his friend. He tried to hold back the tears, but he couldn't. Tears flowed down his cheeks like waterfalls. Izuku wanted the tears to stop, but how could they when he was faced with a birthday party? For him. Izuku hadn't properly celebrated his birthday since his diagnosis. Sure, his mom tried her best to make every year special for him, but it was oh so different from how the other kids celebrated their birthdays. By the time Izuku turned 9, he had asked his mom if they could stop celebrating it altogether. That was around the time his dad had to go completely electronic-free for some sort of experiment they were doing in the States. Izuku hadn't even been able to talk to the man on his following birthdays. Izuku felt a hand in his hair. He blinked away tears so he could see who it was, because he knew it wasn't May. He turned his head to see Hitoshi. The taller boy just smiled down at him. "It's your birthday," he declared, an unwavering edge to his voice. "Enjoy it." "Was this your idea?" Izuku asked, voice wrecked from crying. "Yes," Hitoshi admitted, blushing at the admission. Izuku couldn't hold himself back as he stepped out of Mei's embrace and practically lunged at Hitoshi. He pulled the taller boy down by his collar as he placed his hands on the boy's cheeks and pulled him in for a kiss. Hitoshi seemed momentarily stunned, and Izuku almost pulled away, but right when he was about to, Hitoshi wrapped an arm around his waist and tugged him closer, as he returned the kiss that Izuku was offering so hungrily. It was when they finally registered the yelling and whistling that they actually remembered where they were, having been lost in the feeling of each other's lips. The two were as red as tomatoes. Izuku actually looked like one with his green hair and all. "Oi, Shinzo, or whatever your name is," a voice called from the group of people in the common area, causing both boys to look for the source. It was Tenko, they realized, as the man approached them. "Yes?" Hitoshi asked, both confused and slightly scared of what was about to happen. "If you hurt Izuku in any way, shape, or form, I will kill you. Got it?" he asked, raising a hand to support his threat. Hitoshi smiled, all worry washing straight down the drain at the man's words. "Understood. I'd never hurt him," the boy reassured, as he turned his head to look at Izuku, who was already looking at him. "And before you say anything, Aizawa or Yamada," Izuku said abruptly, as he turned towards everyone in the room, "I would never do anything to hurt your son. I will always do my best to take care of him, even if he's a stubborn brat." Izuku's words caused everyone to fall into their own fits of laughter. While they did, Izuku took Hitoshi's hand in his and stole a quick kiss. "Now," he started, smiling at him, "we can get this party started." Chapter 15. The missing piece of the puzzle was right there all along. July 15th, 3:31 p.m. at UA. A Midoriya's POV. Hisashi might have been MIA for the last few years of his son's life, but that doesn't mean he doesn't care for the boy. He always made sure that he and his mother had enough money so Inko didn't have to work and could spend as much time with Izuku as possible. He knew, despite his efforts, that he'd have to go MIA at some point. All Might never could give it a rest, even when Hisashi himself had thought about giving up on his multi-century-long search for one for all, just so he could take care of his family. After he'd basically lost his face, he knew he couldn't see his son face to face again, so he'd made some excuse. He didn't want the boy to think he was abandoning him, but with every fight that took place, the farther the bridge between them extended. He knew that if he didn't try to cross that bridge soon, it would collapse, and he'd never be able to get across ever again. So he decided the best time to reconcile with his son would be on the day that celebrated his 16th year of life. He was bringing a gift and everything. Hearing about how his son's friends had neglected his birthday had pissed the man off. He knew how the boy had been treated growing up. That's one of the reasons that he turned his son's childhood bullies into Nomu. If they couldn't do anything but follow a command he gave them, then they'd never hurt his boy. Sure, Subaraba's Nomu did pick the boy up in Hosu and almost kill him, but that was just a fluke. He had simply ordered him to pick up whatever hero was trying to fight Stain. He hadn't expected the hero to be Izuku. He had never meant to hurt his boy. If he could go back in time and retract that order, he would, in an instant. He hated that his ignorance had caused his son to gain even more scars than he'd already gotten from the quirk All Might gave him. Hizashi decided that instead of showing up alone, he'd ask Inko and the Bakugos if he could join them. He and the doctor finally figured out how to get his face to look normal, after years and years of failed attempts. Now, he could look his son in the eyes without worrying about what he'd say about his face. Now all he had to worry about was what his son would say when he saw him. He knew the boy was mad at him for practically stepping out on him and his mother, but that's just because no one ever explained everything to the boy, in fear of how he'd react to his father being a villain. But after seeing how the boy reacted to Tenko being Shigaraki, he felt more confident in telling his son the truth. Inko had been ecstatic to hear that Hizashi was ready to come back. When they met up outside of UA, she immediately ran up to him and pulled him into a kiss. He had no reason to protest and kissed his wife. He was surprised when she hit him on the head after pulling back. He rubbed the crown of his head as he spoke. "Ow! What was that for, my love?" "That's for not texting me to check up on Izuku in the last few years," she huffed, crossing her arms over her chest as she glared at Hizashi. "I didn't need to text you," he started, and his wife's glare sharpened, so he backtracked. "I mean, I didn't need to text you because I have every single camera in Japan rigged to notify me if either of you are spotted. And I tracked both of your phones 24/7. I used to call the police on the boys who bullied Izuku outside of school. A lot of them were arrested." Inko's eyes softened as Hizashi spoke about the way he cared for his family from afar. He hated that she thought he'd ever completely abandoned her. He took a step towards his wife, resting a hand on her cheek. "I'd never abandon you, or Izuku, you hear?" he declared, before pulling Inko in for another kiss. This one softer than its predecessor. It was all love and reassurance, while the other had been all yearning and hunger after years of not being within a mile radius of each other. Someone cleared their throat, causing the two to pull apart. "Ahem," Mitsuki said, shooting a glare at Hizashi. "Are we going inside for Izuku's party, or are you two going to stay out here all wrapped up in each other's embrace?" Hizashi laughed as he smiled at the woman. "Looks like you haven't changed, Mitsuki," he said, looking her in the eye. Hizashi had sent Mitsuki and Masaru an apology letter, several pages long, after their son's kidnapping. He had explained that the only reason he chose Katsuki was because he knew the boy would never convert, the same with his own son. He'd ordered every person involved not to put a scratch on either boy, but of course, Muscular, being the airhead he is, couldn't stop himself. The only person he didn't blame for hurting Izuku was Himiko. She didn't cut to kill, she cut to live. Himiko's diet has lacked blood for years, causing her to become anemic and crave blood. Hizashi has been providing the girl with animal blood since she joined, trying to get the girl into a healthy state. So when she admitted to cutting Izuku, Hizashi had told her that it wasn't her fault. He ended up blaming her parents for not giving her any blood. She had thanked him for his kindness before saying she'd try her best not to cut his son going forward, even if his blood tasted delicious. All he responded with was a short spiel about asking before cutting. Himiko had nodded her understanding before skipping out of the room. "Let's head inside before the party's over," Masaru said, smiling at Hizashi as he wrapped an arm around his wife's waist. Hizashi nodded as he did the same to his own wife. The gates opened without any fuss, the four parents making their way to the teachers' dorms. Once they made it to the doors, they stopped, contemplating if they should text the boys first or just walk in. Before they could think any longer, Hizashi threw the doors open. Every person in the room stopped what they were doing to see who was walking into the party. Just about everyone froze when they saw Hizashi. All might even coughed up blood, but Hizashi didn't care about them. The only person in that room he cared about was his boy. "Izuku," he called, the boy being the only one not looking at the doors. At the call of his name, though, he looked, eyes widening when he saw Hizashi. "Hi, son," he breathed. Izuku bolted forward, quirk activating so he could get to his father faster. He barreled into the man at the speed of light, but Hizashi didn't even flinch, pulling his son into the tightest hug he could muster. "Hi," the boy breathed, head buried in Hizashi's shoulder. "I missed you," he admitted, breaking Hizashi's heart. He will forever regret not being at his son's side when he needed him most. But from now on, He will stay at the boy's side, even when he doesn't want him to be there. I missed you too, he told the boy, hoping that the emotion he was pushing went through. His son pulled back before taking his hand in his. Let me introduce you to my boyfriend, he said, a blinding smile adorning his face. You too, Mom, Auntie, Uncle, the boy said, addressing the other important people in his life as he dragged them over to where a purple-haired boy sat on the couch. His hair was styled in a way that made it look like it was defying gravity. The boy had purple eyes that seemed to glow as they bored into Hizashi's soul. There were pronounced eye bags beneath the boy's eyes that alluded to the idea that the boy had something similar to insomnia. The boy didn't seem the tiniest bit afraid of Hisashi as he stood up. If Hisashi had to choose what emotion he thought the boy was feeling at the moment, he'd say that it was something akin to anger. Izuku probably told the boy about how he'd basically abandoned his family. He didn't blame the boy for his feelings towards him, but he was eager to prove him wrong. He wanted to make things right with his family, no matter the consequences. If it meant he had to go to Tartarus, he'd do it in a heartbeat. Nothing mattered to him more than his family. This is Hitoshi Shinzo, Izuku said, smiling as said boy wrapped an arm around his waist and kissed the crown of his head. He and the other 3 adults all took turns introducing themselves to Izuku's lover before sharing embarrassing childhood stories about the boy. He talked about the time that Izuku had fallen asleep in the bathtub watching a hero documentary that he was analyzing. After telling his story, he excused himself to get a drink. What he didn't mention was who he was going to talk to while getting said drink. He approached the table with refreshments, which just so happened to be where Yagi was standing. What are you doing here, all for one? Toshinori bit out as soon as Hisashi was next to him. I'm getting a drink, he said simply, as he picked up a cup of fruit punch and took a sip. No, the man gritted out, through clenched teeth as he glared at Hisashi with blazing blue eyes. I mean, what are you doing here? Hisashi sighed as he finished off the drink in his hand and threw away the paper cup. I'm not here to fight, All Might, he declared, leaning against the table. Honestly, I don't think I want to continue fighting. Then why are you here? All Might asked again, more confusion in his tone than any other emotion. Hisashi turned his head to meet the man's eyes as he said, I'm here for the same reason I want to give up on this century-long war we have going on. He pushed off of the table as he prepared to walk away. Which is? All Might questioned. All malice gone and replaced with pure and utter confusion. Hisashi leaned in close to the man's ear as he walked past him. My family, he whispered, before making his way back to his wife and son. As he sat down, he realized that this was the piece of him that had been missing for years. The piece being his heart, because while he had Tenko, the boy wasn't his only family. Now, as he sat with Inko, Mitsuki, Masaru, Izuku, Tenko, Katsuki, and all of their partners, he knew that this was where he was supposed to be. His family was complete. Well, until the kids decided to have children of their own, but they still had a few years until that happened. Okay. That's the end of this fic. 15 chapters because Izuku's birthday is on July 15th. Oh my god, my eyes hurt. Oh, that was not nice. Yeah, so this fic is finally over. I don't know when I'm gonna post this. So, right now, it is September 1st, as of when I'm recording it. I might not post this until the weekend, because, I don't know, because I think by then I'll have the second, addition to this series done. So, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what I do. But yeah. What's the comment on this fic? Sorry. I'm about to record another podfic after I, finish this one. But I saw a comment. What's this comment? Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay. So, yeah. I love you all. Have a great day, night, morning, evening, wherever you are, and I will see you in the next podfic. Bye!